This is a year-long reading challenge that was created by Sarah over at Wicked Reading. I'm gonna leave myself open to if I want to switch out any of the books that I chose for these prompts, I can do that. So this is just for right now, these are the books that I would choose because these are books that I am already interested in reading and they happen to fit these prompts. I feel like I won't switch out the books because these are actually books, like I said, I want to read. But I'm giving myself the option to change my mind later on because you never know. Now, going through all the prompts, easy and hard mode, and selecting books for this was a lot of fun. And I've already done all that work and put it into her Canva template that she did provide for us. So again, refer back to her original announcement video if you want to get all the Google Doc with all the rules and information. And she also provided Instagram templates and a Canva document that you can go in and edit for yourself to make your own TBR if you're interested in also participating in this year-long challenge. The first prompt is published in 2025. And for hard mode, you have to read this book before the end of 2025. And for this one, I chose Forsyth Conservatory, which I keep talking about on my channel, but if you haven't heard about it already, this is a debut novel by the author A.L. Sterling. This book comes out at the end of October, I believe October 25th. This is a gothic horror novel about a tarot reader who gets hired to investigate a murder of one of the students at Forsyth Conservatory. It's very much murder mystery, dark, spooky, perfect for October. I do have an e-arc of this book, so I'm really excited to get to it this month, which means I am already on the path to fulfilling this prompt for hard mode. Next is the mixed media prompt, and for hard mode, you have to read a book that has 3 or more types of mixed media in it. And for this, I chose House of Leaves. Now, this is a very intimidating book. I love puzzles and immersion, and when I found out that House of Leaves was basically an interactive story where the reader kind of has to go on this journey to also solve the mystery with the narrator, I was all in. And then I found out the book is super long. I actually bought a physical copy and I even debated returning it to the store because I was so intimidated by it, but at the end of the day, I did not return it. I ended up keeping it. It is on my shelves and I do want to read it. It sounds like a lot of fun. The only thing I understand about this book and the story, because I don't actually want to know too much about it because I don't want to be spoiled, but it's about a house that is actually bigger on the inside than it looks on the outside. So it has to do with liminal spaces, I believe, which means I could have used this book for another prompt. A lot of the books I chose probably could be used for multiple other prompts, but you can only use one book per prompt in this challenge. So I'm sticking with this one for mixed media. For indie self-published, you have to choose an indie self-published book, and the hard mode is reading a book by an author that is new to you. Now for this one, I chose Father Dirt by Taylor J. Thompson. The author actually reached out to me over on Bookstagram asking if I would like to read his book, and I of course said yes because it sounded really interesting. I'm going to read you a snippet of the synopsis over on Goodreads because this is a book that I haven't heard anybody speak about, so I'd like to share a little bit of what this is actually about. So this is described as a gothic horror suspense novel that explores grief, greed, faith, and the dangers of groupthink. When the author reached out to me, he let me know that he had seen that I had read and loved Anne of Green Gables, and he said that Anne of Green Gables was actually a bit of inspiration for him for this story. And I can't right off the bat understand where the correlation is, but I am actually very interested to read this and see if I can see the inspiration in his story, since that is now one of my favorite books of all time. For the paranormal prompt, you obviously have to read a book with paranormal aspects to it, and the hard mode is to read a book that has paranormal investigators in it. So I chose a book that I've really been interested in reading because I love The Conjuring and the Conjuring universe, and since they just came out with the last Conjuring movie, it has reinvigorated my desire to read The Demonologist, which is a horror nonfiction about the real lives of Ed and Lorraine Warren. So I thought this was a perfect opportunity to finally get that book on my TBR. The next prompt is stolen from another TBR, and for hard mode, you have to choose a book stolen from another horror bingo specific TBR. I decided to steal my book from Lexi from Books with Lexi. She chose The Autumn Springs Retirement Home Massacre by Philip Fracassi. Now I had to look over to read that because that is a long title. For the vampire prompt, hard mode is choosing a book that is set in modern day. So honestly, the only one that I could really think of was The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. Now, Grady Hendrix is an author that I've really been wanting to read from, and I still have yet to pick up one of his books. This isn't really one of his that I wanted to get to first, only because I haven't really been interested in vampires recently. But since the prompt is to choose a book about vampires, there's not really any getting around that. The next book is to read a book set in water, and hard mode is to make sure that the book takes place a majority of the time in water. So I chose Whale Fall by Daniel Kraus. This feels like a very Jonah and the Whale type of book to me because it's literally about a man who gets swallowed by a whale when he's in search of his father. And from my understanding, he deals a lot with grief, and I've heard that this is a book to make people cry, and that was enough to sell me on it. I love an emotional book, especially surrounding grief. I actually didn't know that it was specifically a horror book, but I'm glad it is because it fit perfectly for this prompt. The next book is to add a book with a horror movie element, and the hard mode is to watch a horror movie, which is not a hard prompt for me to fulfill because I love horror movies, and that's the majority of the movies I watch anyway. But the book I chose for this is Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay. This book has been on my radar as a lover of horror films. I really gravitate to books that have to do with horror movie elements anyway, so I've been wanting to read a lot of those books, and I actually heard this is great on audiobook, so I will be listening to that as well. The next book is to choose a prompt that you can spell the word ghost or scare using the book title and or the author's name, and hard mode is choosing a BIPOC author for this. Now I went with The Buffalo Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones because it was a book that was gifted to me from Aardvark and I have not picked it up yet. I've really been wanting to give Stephen Graham Jones a try. I know people either love him or hate him, and I'm hoping that I really enjoy his writing, fingers crossed. For the liminal spaces prompt, the hard mode is to make sure the book has an even number of pages, and I chose The Staircase in the Woods by Chuck Wendig. So when I looked it up on Goodreads, there was an edition that had even number of pages, so I'm gonna go with that. I feel like everybody has already heard about this book because it is so popular right now, but essentially there is this mysterious staircase in the middle of the woods that clearly shouldn't be there. And I've heard somebody describe it kind of like It by Stephen King, where you have a group of kids when they're younger and they discover the staircase, and then you get a time jump of them as adults. I really don't want to know too much more about it because I feel like this is a very mysterious book where you're going to want to like discover things as it happens. So I'm just going to leave it at that. For the library prompt, the hard mode is going to be to read the book and make sure to return the book on time before it's due. No overdue library books. I'm going with Bury Your Gaze by Chuck Tingle because this is a book I checked out from my library earlier this year, but I never got around to actually reading it. So I know for a fact they have this book available, and I am determined to actually check it out and read it this time. The next prompt is a book picked by chance, and hard mode is to have more than 10 possibilities. So what I decided to do was go to my Fable app, and Fable has this really cool pick for me option where you can go to your want to read list and choose pick for me, and it just kind of randomizes all of your books on your digital TBR and randomly selects one for you. And I definitely have more than 10 on my want to read Fable list, so I was good on the hard mode. The book that was chosen was Stay on the Line by Clay McLeod Chapman, and I had no idea what this book was. I don't even remember putting it on my want to read, but it was there. I did recognize the author's name because he recently wrote a book called Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, which has been very popular this year, and I really want to read that book. And I guess I must have just been adding books that he's written also to my TBR, so it was on there, and I'm actually glad that I got chosen because it sounds really intriguing. This is only an 80-page book, and it was written in 2024. It also says there's an illustrator, so I would love to get my hands on a physical copy because I love illustrations in books. The next prompt is a book that you've been putting off, and for hard mode, you actually have to read this book first before you can complete any other prompt on the Horror Bingo Challenge. Now, I chose Playground by Erin Beauregard, and this works out perfect for me because technically October's already started and I have yet to pick up a book. I bought this book at the beginning of the year, super excited to read it, and then I never picked it up. So I've just been continuously putting it off, even though I've been really excited about it. So everything about this prompt fits perfectly, and hopefully I can actually start reading this book today. For the LGBT plus prompt, the hard mode is to have the main character be the LGBT plus character and have LGBT plus themes throughout the book. So I chose My Darling Dreadful Thing by Johanna Van Veen. I've heard this book described as very gothic, suspenseful, beautifully written, and I'm really excited to read a book by this author. The main character of this book is queer, and it says that the queer sapphic love story is a prominent plot point to this story, so perfect. The next prompt is a buddy read, and hard mode would be to participate in a discussion. For this, I chose Made a Monster by Rob Nelson. So me and my best friend have been wanting to read this book, and I asked her this morning if she would like to do an official buddy read with me and read it at the same time. So we will be discussing it as we read and then discussing our thoughts when we complete it. Adrian and Kendra are a match made in hell. Adrian's dark past left him with a twisted imagination that takes him deep into the forest where he does unspeakable things. I feel like it doesn't give you any real indication of how graphic and gory this book actually is. I heard about this book over on Bookstagram, where a lot of people I follow read splatterpunk and extreme horror, and somebody was talking about this book and went into details about what this book entails to kind of, highlight some of the trigger warnings that might be involved here. And it's pretty extreme, which was actually what intrigued me by this because I didn't even know what splatterpunk was. And the author actually responded to one of my comments and was actually nice enough to explain to me the difference between extreme horror and splatterpunk. Extreme horror leans more towards gore and violence just for the sake of being gross and violent, whereas splatterpunk tends to have a message and a commentary behind it. And it is extremely graphic and gory and violent, but there is a purpose. For me, I think I would enjoy splatterpunk over extreme horror because I do feel like I enjoy gore and violence, but I think I prefer when there's a purpose behind those things and not just like, oh, I'm gonna throw this stuff in for shock value, which I guess has a time and a place and could be fun if you're in the right mood, but I feel like splatterpunk would be more up my alley. The next prompt is to choose a book that was recommended to you, and hard mode is to choose a book that is a bit out of your comfort zone. So I went with Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. This is a book that has been recommended to me multiple times this year, and even though I love Jurassic Park the movie, I don't know how much I'm gonna like the book. People swear by it. I'm just really intimidated by the fact that there's so much science involved in it. I feel like when I hear the word science, I think textbook, and I already right off the bat have this preconceived notion that I'm going to be bored. I've heard that this book gets really into the science behind what's going on in Jurassic Park, and that just sounds boring. So I'm hoping that it doesn't read like a dry textbook. Science was never one of my favorite subjects, even though in theory it's fascinating to know the science behind things, but in practice, it's really not interesting to me. The next prompt is to choose a novella, and the hard mode is to choose an author that you've read from before. Now, since I just finished Shy Girl by Mia Ballard and loved it, I decided to go with We All Rot Eventually, also by Mia Ballard. I have to admit, I don't know what this is about at all, so besides the title and the really cute cover, I am completely in the dark, and to be honest, I kind of want to keep it that way, especially because it is a novella. I'd rather just jump right into it. The next prompt is to read a nature-based horror book, and the hard mode is to make sure that there are nature elements on the cover. So I chose Root Rot. by Saskia Nislau. And this has been on my radar because I am a big fan of creature publishing, so this is definitely one I've been planning to read anyways. It's something to do with fungus, like mushrooms or fungal infections or something, transforming people. I really don't know. It's on the shorter side. I think it's only 140 pages, so I don't know how much I want to know before going in. I tend to feel that with shorter books, reading the synopsis kind of gives away too much at times, so I really don't have a clear idea on what to expect from this book. The one part of the synopsis I will read to you is that Root Rot explores predatory family dynamics, the boundaries of bodies and home, and how individuals choose to participate in or push back against structures that would harm them. So, I mean, that sounds interesting, right? The next prompt is title that includes a verb, and for the hard mode, the book has to be a backlist. So I chose the book Come Closer by Sarah Gran because that was published in 2003 and she has written many other books since then. This is a book that I have been wanting to read since the beginning of the year when I found out about it. And again, I have just yet to pick it up, but I'm still thinking about it now that the year is kind of closely coming to an end. So, because it's still been on my mind this entire time, I just have to get it on this horror bingo TBR. This is again a shorter book that I know very little about. It's 194 pages, and really the only thing I know about it is it's about demon possession. Sometimes I really enjoy going into books blind, especially if there's a buzzword that really hooks me already. Like if you just say this is about demon possession, I'm good. Let's just read it and see what happens. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I don't want to know every little thing. That's what I really hate about romance because they give you the tropes, which literally spoils the entire story. Once you already tell me that this is an enemies to lovers book, I already know they're going to end up together at the end, so what's the point of reading it? I'll get back on track. Sorry about that. The next prompt is Second Chance. Now, this is my one and only book that will not fulfill hard mode because hard mode for this one is to make sure the book has an odd number of pages. So for this I chose Curse of the Reaper by Brian Macaulay. I just recently finished his brand new novel Breathe In, Bleed Out, and I did not like it. But from reading his author's note and finding out how much he really loves horror movies and slasher films, I decided that I would like to give this author a second chance and read his debut novel, because the premise of Curse of the Reaper is really focused on horror films. And like I mentioned earlier, a book about horror films is one of those buzzword topics for me. So the premise to this one sounds super fun. It is about an actor who played an iconic horror villain from a popular 80s slasher film, but now he's kind of washed up and all he does is really like go to conventions and signs autographs, and he's kind of like a has-been, right? But then he gets word that his popular franchise is getting a reboot. However, they are replacing him with a new actor. And I guess this leads him to get a little crazy, and his character persona starts taking over, and it sounds like he becomes the killer for real. So that's such an interesting concept. Okay, we've made it to the last row. So the first one on this last row is reading a book with an animal on the cover. And for hard mode, it has to be longer than the last book you read. So this one takes strategic planning, and you just need to read this book after you just completed a shorter book. Now, since I picked Pet Sematary by Stephen King, that shouldn't be too difficult because I feel like Stephen King novels are really long anyways, so I don't think I'll have any trouble fulfilling this in hard mode. Now, surprisingly, I've never seen the movie and I really don't know what this is about. I don't know how I've gone this long without being spoiled since this is so popular. If you watched my October TBR video where I play Final FMC, my TBR game, this was my viewer's choice prompt. And I'm really happy that it was recommended to me by 4 different people in the comments because it's been on my physical TBR for the majority of this year. And I've really been planning to pick this up because I've heard from many different people that this is the scariest book they've ever read. And I've been on the hunt to read really scary books. I've often heard that this is Stephen King's scariest novel. I believe Stephen King even said that himself. So I'm just really excited to read this one, especially during spooky season. The next prompt is one-word title, and hard mode is to pick a book that is colorful and not just black. So for this one, I chose another book by Stephen King, and that is Joyland. All I really know about this is that it takes place in an amusement park, and apparently it's a little bit different than a usual King novel. I think it leads more towards a murder mystery coming of age thriller, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to double check that, but I've heard it's a really fun summer read, so maybe I'll just wait till summer rolls around to pick this one up again. I did order a physical copy, so I do have it on my shelf. I was kind of disappointed because I did order the illustrated edition, but they sent me the regular paperback by mistake. But they did refund me and also let me keep the book, so I guess I can't really complain. But I am kind of bummed that I don't get to see the illustrations because, like I said earlier, I love a book with illustrations in them. The next prompt is to choose a debut novel, and for hard mode, it also needs to be a debut author. So for this, I chose My Lips, Her Voice by L.L. Madrid. This is the first book being published by L.L. Madrid, and it comes out October 14th. Many young girls have been going missing in Copper City, and our main characters are trying to unravel the mystery around these disappearances, and one of the main characters is actually being possessed by one of the dead girls, and they are trying to find the truth behind her death. I did hear somebody describe this as a bit of a cozy horror, so that's kind of interesting and probably perfect for cozy fall vibes. And it probably makes sense since this is leaning more towards YA or new adult, that it's maybe not as graphic or gory as some of the other books on my list so far. The second to last prompt is to choose a book that works with another goal, and for hard mode, that goal has to be something that involves the YouTube community. So maybe another challenge created by another booktuber, another readathon, or anything like that. So I'm doing Herkied, which is the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do, and that is also a year-long prompt. So really, any book that I choose is going to satisfy a prompt for that challenge. So anything I pick would work here without a doubt. So I decided to go with My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix, and I chose this because this is a book that I've been wanting to read since February. It honestly has one of the coolest covers I've ever seen. It's set in the 80s, it has to do with an exorcism, it's kind of funny, and it just gives complete nostalgia vibes. I really think this whole premise is right up my alley, and I've often heard people tell me that I would love it. So I have to finally read this book. I was really bummed because I heard that this was a perfect read for summer because I believe it also takes place in the summer. Now, I could wait till summer comes around again to pick it up. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But either way, I just need to get it read. So it's going on the TBR, and this is definitely going to count for something on Herkied. I'll probably use this for the Herkied prompt that asks for 7 or more colors on a cover, because there are many different beautiful colors on this cover, as you can see. Now, last but not least is choosing a book with a social commentary, and for hard mode, the author needs to be part of a marginalized group. I chose Ring Shout by P. Jaleh Clark. This is another book under 200 pages which tells the story of resistance fighters killing clan members. This is a book I found out about when people were doing that trend. If you like the movie Sinners, you should read these books, and this was definitely one of the books that was often listed, so I just had to add it to my TBR. And I'm hoping that it's a satisfying read. And that completes my horror bingo TBR. Thank you again, Sarah, for creating this horror bingo challenge. I'm super excited to be involved this year. If you're also participating in this challenge, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you're reading, and I'll see you next time.